Hi, welcome back to Teens Talk Politics. I'm joined again today with my co-host Andrew, and today we have a special guest, Miles.
Hi.
And today we'll be covering the kind of the tax situation throughout modern politics and kind of what the taxation landscape is like and our thoughts upon it. So we're going to be starting off pretty simple. So during the Trump presidency, especially, um, Republicans have advertised a lot of, and not advertised per se, but um, supported tax cuts for the rich, and the promise of a better economy, so these rich CEOs can offer more jobs and stuff like that. And it's been highly disputed. So we're going to start off with Andrew, and he's going to tell us what he thinks. So Andrew, any thoughts?
Well, I think the philosophy that Republicans are basically basing all their tax theories on is if you basically make the tax pay less in taxes, their goal is they'll be able to create more jobs. These are the rich people that own major corporations like Amazon. They're thinking, okay, if we lower Jeff Bezos's taxes that he pays for his property tax and all the factories he has in the United States, then he would be able to have more money to create more jobs throughout Amazon and be able to have a higher job growth. That is just simply not true, and that's not what happens. Every single Republican that has tried to raise taxes successfully has. I'm sorry, not raise taxes, lower taxes, sorry, for the rich, and successfully has. That just hasn't happened. The rich have had to pay tremendously less, significantly less in taxes, but there has been no significant job growth directly after the tax break. Yes, they say it's going to help the middle class, but is it really a tax break for the middle class? The answer is no. It's major tax break for the rich. And the rich are basically benefiting off this major legislation that was passed back in 2017. Paul Ryan, Mitch McConnell, that group, who was able to pass this while they had a trifecta in government with Republicans controlling the House, Senate, and the White House. And of course, Donald Trump did sign that into law, and that was one of his campaign promises to basically rewrite the tax code, which did happen. This basically made rich folks that had a lot of money that own these corporations, they got lower taxes. A lot of people think that's the good thing, but it's just not. You're having the rich not paying their fair share. Technically, they're paying more in taxes, but percentage wise, compared to what they should be paying, it's very, very low.
Mm-hmm.
For example, when Amazon got a major tax break, there was a very small increase. It was just a normal increase that you would have in job growth because as the company basically gets bigger, of course, you're going to have more job openings. Nothing changed. Nothing changed since before the bill was passed when Jeff Bezos was paying thousands and thousands, possibly millions more in taxes versus when the tax bill was imposed and he got to keep his millions of dollars and not have to give it to the American government. So this philosophy that this is how you rewrite the tax code, this is how you get a job growth and have a good economic job growth and have a good report for the month. It just simply is not true. And I believe that anybody that believes that is just lying to themselves because it's not true. And I think what Democrats are trying to do is they're trying to level the playing field. The rich should be paying their fair share. The higher it goes, the more you can pay for. If you just raise people that make more than $100,000, yes, you can pay for universal health care. You can possibly close the deficit, assuming if you don't spend it in a bunch of other places like universal health care. It's either going to be lowering the deficit or paying for universal health care and things along those lines, free college.
Mm-hmm.
Things
Yep.
that a lot of first world countries have. And America is a first world country. We just do not have social benefits that other countries do. We spend millions, billions, and billions of dollars in things like the military. We've spent billions and billions of dollars on a border wall.
Mm-hmm.
But the only thing we have to show for healthcare is the Affordable Care Act. And that does not cover like it only covers a fraction of the American people. When you have people lowering taxes, that is not going to help the deficit. It increased the deficit by trillions of dollars back in 2017, 2018 when the bill was passed. And the deficit is going to increasingly get larger as Democrats spend more money without changing the tax plan, the tax code. And when this tax code is remaining in place that the Republicans have put in place back when Trump was president, back when Democrats did not have control of the House. They did not have control of the Senate and did not have control of the White House like they do today. Mm-hmm. And to rewrite this tax code, you're going to have to get moderates in the Senate to, okay, we need to close this deficit and we need a way to pay for infrastructure bill and the 3.5 resolution in the House. So I don't see a way to pay for it if we don't raise taxes on people that deserve to have their taxes raised that were just cut. Their taxes were cut for no reason except for the fake philosophy that their taxes, or sorry, the job growth will grow, and that just hasn't happened. So for someone to say that that is how you get job growth, is to cut taxes, it's just not true. And I feel like the American people is going to have to look back and see, okay, which plan is going to work. If Biden does eventually put in a tax plan where he raises taxes for the people making above $100,000 a year, and then he can pay for things like his infrastructure bill. Only a few months ago, after Biden made his State of the Union, Kevin McCarthy was complaining on Twitter that this is just a big spending president that has no way to pay for these things. Don't you think the government would have a lot more money had we not put in this tax code in place? Had we not lowered taxes for the rich? Had we not opened up a deeper hole in the deficit? Yes, we still probably wouldn't be able to afford it, but don't you think we would have a lot more money to pay for things like this? Yes, taxes will need to be increased. If we put infrastructure bill on the table and actually get it without not creating a major deficit that has already been laid out by economic specialists that think, okay, this is going to raise the deficit by blank amount and add this much money to the deficit that already exists in America. If we just raise taxes on people that can afford to pay taxes, more in taxes, then we can pay for things.
All right, that's
tax cuts for the rich is not the way to do it.
So, what do you think about this, Miles?
So
we know, your perspective is a bit different. So, but what do you think about the philosophy that paying for things lowering of rich taxes will increase the American jobs and big corporations and benefit the economy. What do you think about this, and do you think this statement is accurate? You'll have a few minutes uninterrupted.
Okay, so thank you. So I'm gonna put this out there that maybe I think over time actually it would work very well, but over time, also I think for it to work well, these workers at Amazon, these major companies, they need more rights because they don't get paid fairly. I don't think the minimum wage is enough for them to sustain. Also, I think lowering the taxes, I think it should be very close to being even, but the richer people have just slightly lower. Another thing I think about this is that over time, eventually, it might be bad since these super rich companies, they might have a lot more power than they should, and if they like crash or they fire people, it might actually cause a lot of problems for the poorer people. So I actually think this would benefit for maybe it would work out for like 5 years or 10 years, and after that, if it's
why do you think it would be a more short-term benefit?
Actually, I'm saying well, I think over a while it would help a lot, but then after a while they should put back to normal since the rich people might get too rich.
Yeah, and you mentioned how these big corporations have so much power. If Amazon crashes, the economy is dead. It's all relies on one company. If one
That's what I'm
company
saying.
is down, American economy is killed. And
I'm
that's
gonna
the
say
problem with
currently.
having a free market.
I feel like if some of these companies crash at the rate they're going, Amazon, almost everything is shipped with it. Like it's a very big corporation. A lot of things depend on it. I feel like if it does crash at this rate, USA and many other countries will be very like it would be very bad for them.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's just a
So
given, isn't it?
Yeah,
I don't get how this
so
is a short term at all.
I think it's more of a
well,
long term actually. Like long term until the
You
point
just
where
you just said it would be between 5 and 10 years it would work. How's this long term?
okay, more short term. I think after a while, if enough people get jobs, then maybe they start doing fair taxing. But I think it would only work if the workers had fair rights.
And why do you say that? Regardless of what their rights are, they're gonna be paying the same taxes. The big corporation owners, the CEOs, the people in the corporation that makes millions, millions, billions. In case of Jeff Bezos, they make millions and billions of dollars, right?
Hmm.
And then they pay minuscule amount of taxes. For example, Harvard University, they had to pull out several $1 million to pay in taxes when taxes were increased back in late 2000s, right?
Right.
And they were very irritated. Of course, their taxes got lowered because, it's a big Harvard University is quite wealthy. And after the tax breaks that the Trump administration put in place, they didn't have to shed out millions of dollars for taxes. And not social workers, Amazon workers, and any other corporation, regardless of their their treatment in these companies, their taxes and percentage wise are going to be greater than the CEO. Yes, in terms of just sheer money, they're going to be paying less, but their income tax is probably much lower because of loopholes that the CEOs are able to get around. And of course, on certain taxes, you can't get around that, right? Is it payroll taxes? I believe you can't get around payroll taxes, but there are certain things that you can do to get around taxes. And the Koch brothers, big conservative group, sorry, not group, conservative family, that has invested millions and millions of dollars into Trump or into Republican campaigns. They're very good at getting around these loopholes, getting around these major percentages of their money being taken away, going to the government. When you have people that are this rich that are able to get around taxes this easily, you need to close the loopholes and you need to raise their taxes. Because if you raise their taxes, you can afford so many good social benefits that are going to help other American people that probably don't have as much money. Do we actually believe that the top 1% can't afford to pay these taxes and that's why we're going to lower the taxes? Of course, that's not the philosophy. This is not the reason that they say they're going to lower taxes. Just raise their taxes. They can afford to do it. It's the top 1%. The bottom percentile, people that are living in poverty, people that are living with only the minimum wage, under Biden's plan, their taxes are going to stay the exact same. And for social benefits that maybe we'll put in place because we raise taxes on the rich, they would benefit greatly because they can't afford universal health care, which would be a big social benefit that a lot of countries have. They could afford to go to college without a student loan, which is another thing that a lot of first world countries have, but the United States does not. I think raising taxes on the rich, the top 1%, solves a lot of problems on how we're going to afford things. Biden has laid out his plan already. He's made campaign promises. If you make over $100,000 a year, your taxes will be raised. Less than that, they're staying the same. Republicans are trying to push the
Yeah.
picture that no, if you make less than 100,000, you're going to be raised. Your taxes are going to be raised. That is not true. That is just propaganda, false information. You make more than 100,000, yes, your taxes are going to be increased, and we can actually afford bills that he's trying to push out that help the American people. Maybe later down on the line, universal health care, free education past high school. I just don't know what conservatives can say. Most of the time, it's about the deficit. But from that tax break that conservatives and Republicans in Congress put through, the deficit argument does not work. They're concerned about the deficit while Biden's in charge. When Trump's in charge, they just could not care at all. It's astonishing to me how hypocritical the Republican Party can be, especially when it comes to loopholes in the deficit.
So
it's an interesting point Andrew does raise because of these loopholes and all this other stuff. It really comes into question of whether this is the right move, and it does make it. You can see the opposition argument, which Miles has been explaining, though Andrew is claiming it doesn't make that much sense. Is there any way? So Miles, could you explain how could this entirely benefit the nation, just besides the fact of job growth? How could this benefit the nation other than the job growth? Because I think Andrew has made it quite clear, it probably would be extremely difficult for that ordeal.
So I'm gonna say that while Andrew is right in some ways, since I personally think what I meant earlier with better conditions was instead of paying these taxes, it's the taxes money that they should be paying to the government now will be paid as the workers' salaries. They get paid more so they can afford the taxes, and also I think it'll make more people in the middle class. They'll help out with the poverty problem a lot if they get paid more. But the rich people.
Just to be clear, Andrew's claiming that it wouldn't help people in the middle class. If you could elaborate on how it would help people in the middle class, that would be amazing.
I think it would help them more since they'd be getting paid more. I meant more the people. It'd add more people to the middle class if they got paid more. That's what I think.
It would. Sure, yes, it might add more people to the middle class, but it would also increase. I think it's kind of obvious. It'll also increase the wealth gap. With the rich getting richer and the poor getting poorer.
That's what I'm saying more. I think the rich should still be allowed to make their money, but I think they should slow down the money they make by paying a lot more of it to the workers. That way the workers get paid a lot more and the rich people get paid a little bit less, a lot less than usual.
Well, that's the whole point of raising the minimum wage, which Republicans, conservatives, big corporation CEOs do not want to happen. They do not want to raise the minimum wage, which is a whole other topic on its own. We had a whole episode on that, about the minimum wage argument. And yes, if you pay them less in taxes, they could have the money to raise how much money they pay their workers, but it just doesn't happen. Oh, I get a tax break from the Republicans? All right, I'm going to buy another yacht. Oh, I'm going to go down to Florida and buy a house. It's not going to be towards the workers. It's not going to be towards the company. It's going to be on their private use. It's going to be for something that they do not need, and it's just an accessory of their life.
I'm going to just say that some of these Republican conservative people, I think they need to, they either need to choose to pay the workers a lot more or they need to pay taxes. It's going to be one or the other. I think both would benefit.
But they don't want to make that decision. They either want to pay...
Yeah, they don't.
They don't want to pay either taxes, and they don't want to pay their workers. That's a big problem in Amazon. Both the treatment of workers and the amount they get paid are greatly under what you would expect from a corporation that's worth billions and billions of dollars, with Jeff Bezos' net worth being hundreds and hundreds of billions of dollars. Expected to be the first trillionaire, which is insane. And I want to go back to the point about social benefits. Because without taxes, you can't afford things. Many things that the government wants to do, you cannot afford. Republicans want small government and the government not to be involved. A lot of things you cannot do without the government. And I think they understand that. They need the government to be involved in some way, shape, or form. but they don't want them to be involved in gun issues. They want them to be able to buy a gun when they want. They don't want the government to be coming in, taking all their money. And there are things like that make sense. Yes, I understand you don't want people to take your money, but it goes for a good cause. I was talking to someone the other night. They were like, when you're older, you're going to understand you don't like when someone is trying to take your money. But you have to understand it goes towards social programs that you need to run a country. If you have even more money coming from the American people, people that can afford to pay taxes like the top 1%, maybe social programs can expand and create new branches like universal health care. Big programs like that can help people. But then it went on to say that, it depends on who is paying or who is using your money to pay for things. And I think that's true.
Mhm.
Do we need a several billion-dollar wall on the border of Mexico? No. Most illegal immigrants are over because they overstayed their visas, not because they crossed the border illegally or they come in illegally on planes. They do not go through the ground. Yes, there are thousands of people that do it, but compared to the vast majority of people that do not come through that way, the billions of dollars we spent there just doesn't make sense. So yes, it depends on who is paying for things, people that is controlling your money. Social programs, I believe, that you're paying from your taxes make a lot more sense. And of course, this is getting off topic, but when we're talking about what your taxes are being spent for and using, it makes a lot more sense when you think about, okay, I have to pay these thousands of dollars every year to the government. Well, they're going towards things like education, like the police department, and to the military, like paying members of Congress, right?
Andrew does raise an interesting point. Like, who does pay for this? Miles, do you have a counter suggestion of who would pay for it? Pay for these massive programs,
So
or an alternative method?
I'm gonna just say, I think I'm actually starting to agree with Andrew some. I think what really needs to happen here is the rich people need to pay more taxes, or if they don't pay more taxes, I think they should pay the fair amount of taxes, but at the same time also still pay the workers more. But I'm gonna say, no matter what, the only way for it not to be really corrupt and the rich people being super wealthy and the poor people not, the only real way to do that is going to be the Republicans have to let weigh on one thing. They either have to pay the people more or they need to pay the government more. It's going to have to be one or the other.
But you can't have it either way, right? It has to be one or the other.
Yeah.
And taxes, yes, the government's going to make more money. People think that's taking control of their rights, intervening on their rights. The government has to do certain things. Regardless if you're Republican or Democrat, you understand the government has to intervene sometimes.
Actually, Andrew, I'm going to say, at this point, like some of the really rich people, like Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk, I think at this point that they could afford both, and they should afford both, but I don't think they would do that.
Yeah.
Like, I think they could afford to pay the workers more and pay the government more taxes at this point, but I don't think they're going to do that, which is why I think they might have to agree and just compromise and just do one.
And I will take into consideration when I'm forming my argument that yes, a lot of rich people do not like, I got this far. I started off with not that much money, and here I am with several $1 million. And now the government's here trying to take it away. Regardless of who you are, there's some luck involved. Yes, you can work hours on end, but there's always luck involved. There are so many people that work 12, 14, 15, 16 hours every day, even more sometimes, and they don't make it. There's always luck involved. So the argument that I don't want the government to take my money the moment I get some millions of dollars, and that's the way of funding the government, everyone needs to pay their fair share, regardless. And it's done by percentage-wise.
Oh.
If you make more money, okay, you should pay larger amounts of taxes. Hypothetical, it's not this high, but okay, you have 30% of your earnings. I know it's not that high, but yeah. Make $1 million, yeah, you're going to be paying a little bit more than someone that only makes $7.25. You're going to be paying a lot more to the government if you make the greater sum of money. It's simple math. I don't get what people don't understand. You make more money, it goes to the government. You pay for social programs that help American people, and a lot of people say that's not the problem. The rich should be paying less because they're in charge of these big corporations that basically power the economy, which is true. If you have major corporations, like we mentioned, Amazon, they go down, the economy is dead. Because they control so much transaction of money between their online business, their book business, or whatever branches of Amazon they have. But to say that they don't need to pay taxes because of small reasons, like they're going to help job growth, which isn't true. It's going to help the economy because they can afford to expand their business. None of this has been proven. Statistically, it's not true. When it's happened in the past, it's not true. And even if there's a small increase, do you think it's worth having trillions of dollars in the deficit by having tax cuts for the rich? You might see a small economic decline when you raise taxes because you can't buy as much if you have taxes raised.
Mm-hmm. But it'll eventually
It's gonna
start to
level out.
rebound because people are going
Right.
to start spending more.
Inflation's going to rise and things will happen and the economy will suffer
Well,
sometimes. People need to understand it's not always the government's fault. The government needs to afford things. The government wants to expand so it helps American people. Otherwise, you're sending your politicians to Congress for no reason. And
All right.
yeah.
Well, I think that wraps it up for today. Unless Miles and Andrew have anything to say.
I do have one last little thing to say real quick. So I would just say one little thing is, as bad as this is, I think the government should have like some control. I think they should be able to take a big chunk of the billionaires' money away because they don't actually need all of it. I mean, $99 billion, whatever Jeffrey Bezos' net worth is it's more than necessary. He can sustain a even luxurious lifestyle, and he really doesn't need all that money.
All right. Thanks,
All right.
Sam and
Well,
Miles.
that's that.
And we'll tune in on
Um,
Friday for the next episode for weekly news. Anyways, thank you for listening. It should be on
Have a
Spotify
great
soon.
day.
Thank you for watching.